What's up, plant lovers? I'm Devin Wallien, and I just got finished designing a garden with my little sister Stephanie, and we have documented the entire process of designing the garden from scratch. And this video is intended for maybe you're a budding professional garden designer and you want to learn the steps to create a garden design, or if you simply want to follow this method to redesign your own personal garden. So in this video, we're gonna go through all the steps that you should undertake in order to create a professional looking garden design. So our friend reached out to us because he wanted to redesign his entire garden. It was already full of plants, but he wanted to create a new energy, a new vibe in his yard. And so he asked us to help him come up with a design. So the first thing that you should do before getting to that site is consider going to Google Earth, printing out some screenshots of the property that you're going to be designing. This is going to help you tremendously with taking measurements of the property, which is really the first step that you will need to do. But actually, before that, you should talk to your client, ask them what they are looking for in their design, and if they have any specific requests with their design. What were their requests?
Yeah, so you want to go into it with a list of questions. The first being like, their special requests. So this client asked specifically for no red flowers. They don't want pink flowers in the fall time. They do want to keep some of their pre-existing ground cover. They want to repurpose some of their shrubs that are actually pretty big already, so moving those around, that'll be nice for us because we can use them sort of as like foundation plantings or something like that. What else did he say? Wants to keep his like tropical cannas that are on the side of the house.
Yeah. But otherwise, we're pretty much given free rein. So,
totally.
Now we are about to arrive and start taking our measurements.
Yep.
All right, so I have a 100-foot long measuring tape, and this is super essential to get an extra long one. You're gonna wanna have someone help you do this. It's gonna be way faster, way easier, and you wanna just start taking as many measurements as you possibly can, everything you can think of. We spent about 30 minutes taking measurements. We thought we had everything, and we still had to return another day to fill in the gaps of some of the things that we missed. But this is an essential part to creating a good design, taking every measurement you can think of. And while we were taking the measurements, my sister was basically drawing just a rough sketch and adding in the dimensions that we found. So we're trying to take as many photos as we can, documenting each area that we are taking measurements of. This will give us just some documentation in case we need it at a later point. And after we had the rough sketch along with the photos, we're going back, reviewing all of those photos. We put some just numbers on those photos with dimensions, and we are filling it in on our rough sketch, as you can see. All right, so after we took all the measurements, Stephanie started to make the initial drawing by hand. And then when we had the measurements, that's when we started to actually draw it to scale. You want to explain how we drew it to scale?
Sure. I don't know how to say it in the most technical way, but basically we had this rough sketch of all of our measurements from being at the house. And I basically just went through and started drawing them out. At first I started with the 6 scale. And realized, admittedly, I just didn't have the paper to fit that. So I scaled down to 4.
What's a 6 scale?
So 1 inch equals 6 feet. And so now we're doing a 4 scale, so 1 inch equals 4 feet. And we just barely fit it on the piece of paper, thankfully.
So basically we use this thing called, what is this called?
A T-square.
A T-square
With a straight edge.
with a flat piece of wood, straight edge.
You know, most often you would use a drafting table, but of course we don't have one, so this is making one at home, basically.
And then our architect's ruler. Engineer's ruler. And basically just ensuring that everything is as straight as possible. Then once we got all of the lines figured out and the actual property drawn, now we're going back and drawing circles that represent all of the plants that we have been researching and the ones that we've chosen. So here you can see all of the outline of all the plants, and some of the plant names. We don't have all the plant names on here just
Right.
yet.
Yeah, for the final draft, we'll have a little key. But one thing that's really important when you're making these designs is you want to use a roll of vellum or tracing paper. So underneath here, we have the base plan that you never touch. You draw that once, and then you can use as many, rounds as you want on the top of that so that you can continue to make up new designs. Now, thankfully, we're kind of going to stick with our first one, but that just ensures that your base plan remains clean and you can always use it for reference. So yeah, T-square, engineer ruler, vellum paper, straight edge table. I think those are the checklists to really get you going in the right direction.
And then once we had all of our plants on the map, we changed the shape of each species so they would be more discernible. And then we colored in with basically a corresponding color for each individual kind of plant that we were using. So now let's go through the plant list and the different areas. So we're going to start with the walkway plants, which is very important for this garden. Now he's already had this Lysomachia nummularia, so we kept this. It provided a nice foundational first plant to go off of. I love sedges. I think these add awesome texture, and this one has some blue to it, which is really great. And then the Coreopsis solar will help to elevate that yellow look with that Lysomachia creeping Jenny. And this Royal Candles Veronica, it's a small diminutive plant with lots of color impact, complementing those yellows. And then the Allium atropurpureum as well as the Allium nigrum will add a little bit of vertical interest, which I think will be great along the walk. So next we want to talk about this bed, the very central bed. We think a specimen tree will be great, and we really had to be considerate of that patio, not planting too high. So this is a specimen tree that we went with this awesome Japanese maple, great fall color, as well as this Let's Dance Lovable as the hydrangea that will be planted along that foundation. It's a rebloomer, doesn't grow too tall. In front of that will be Itea virginica Little Henry with more multi-season interest. And some other drought-tolerant plants to fill in that front bed section, including this Achillea terracotta, great color. And moving on, the pre-existing hydrangea, we removed one of those. And for this little side corner of the bed, we're going to be planting this Physocarpus tiny wine 9-bark. Lovely dark foliage and flowers in the summertime. And then this dwarf Mount Airy Fothergilla, another great shrub with multi-season interest. And then finally for some spring flowers would be the Syringa bloomerang lilac. And then at this little section by the front door, we think a vertical juniperus Taylor will be an awesome choice to fill in that little section with an underplanting of some dark cultivars of heuchera. Now, in the world of landscape design, there's a few different ways that the projects are actually completed. Sometimes the designers will simply create the designs and pass that on to the client. The client then has their own crew that will implement those designs, source the materials, and plant those plants according to the design. Or other landscape firms will actually create the design and do the implementation all in one. It just depends. We are the former, so we just create the design. We handed that design after going through the plant list with our client. Now he has the design in hand with his crew. He gives them the design, and then they source the plants, and we'll go forth and plant them according to where we have placed each plant on the design. All right, so let's take a look at what the garden looks like after getting everything planted and installed. Of course, the plants are beautifully small, little babies for a little young juvenile garden, and that's exactly the way we like it. We want to enjoy watching our gardens grow, so I always like to start with some smaller plants, and then as the time goes on, you can see how things are intermingling. You can find gaps to fill with other plants that you love, but overall I would say that the garden design is looking pretty good. Definitely cleaner. I think the plant material is going to be a lot more cohesive. Of course, the garden crew, they had to substitute some plants that they couldn't find, like the Japanese maple. They went with a different cultivar, and that's A-OK. They also had some extra plant material that they planted in some slightly different locations, but that's to be expected as well. And that front area just in front of the porch looks so much nicer. Those hydrangeas and that Itea virginica are going to grow in beautifully, creating lovely mounds. And this section over on the corner also is looking so much nicer. I can't wait to see some of those shrubs in bloom in these coming seasons. So overall, I would say it looks pretty good for a young garden. And we will absolutely document how his garden is evolving from one season to the next. So you'll be able to see if our garden design has lived up to a multi-season interest garden here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Anyways, thank you for joining me and my sister here on Plant Vibrations. We'll catch you guys soon. Ciao.